What's going on, ambitious vet? Thanks for diving into the trenches with us again this week as we seek to provide you the golden grenades you need to break through to new levels of satisfaction, fulfillment, and success in your life post-military and also after immediate transitional education expires. Today, ambitious vet, a lot of us think the crucible only happens one time in our lives, or just fill in the blank of your combat testing, boot camp training on your respected branches. However, another way to look at becoming who you want to become after your military service is another testing of skills, strength, and character. So, ambitious vet, in this episode, you're going to learn how to endure life's crucibles that create abyss in your life, how to leverage mission accomplishment over anything else to create a force multiplier effect in your life, and the one killer to all veterans' ambitions post-military, from a Marine Corps veteran who built a company from zero to over $30 million in organic sales. Stay tuned. You'll get it here.
Having adversity that helps you develop that rhino skin, iron sharpens iron, getting stronger to get to that point where you become unbeatable. And the first real test of the warrior is the crucible.
Are you ready to gain the clarity needed to dominate your goals in 2022? Well, I can't take action for you. However, I can share my story and share some of the tools that have equipped me with the unfair advantage in having the confidence, courage, and proven frameworks to execute without fear over and over again. If this sounds like something that you would be at least open to checking out, ambitious vet, go check out www.10stepstosuccessbook.com, and I look forward to seeing you be equipped with the weaponry needed to dominate the new year.
It's time to get into the trenches, dig into your purpose, and fire up your life's fulfillment. The Ambitious Vet Podcast starts now.
What's going on, ambitious vet? We are right back inside the trenches this week with Zachary Green. Zachary's experiences in the United States Marine Corps shaped his destiny. Combined with his military service and his firefighting experience, they gave him the resourcefulness, integrity, and grit to become a highly successful entrepreneur. Zachary is the founder and former CEO of MN8, Lumaware, and Foxfire. Zachary grew the company from the trunk of his car to over $30 million in organic sales and $5 million in venture funding. The product line is now distributed by the Home Depot and counts the U.S. government, Walmart, Kroger, General Electric aircraft engines, and Procter & Gamble as customers. Taking risk and trusting himself and never letting go of his dreams drove him to create, produce, market, and sell a product that saves lives. Zachary's entrepreneurial journey has been featured on the front page of yahoo.com and also covered by CNN, USA Today, CBS, and many other major news outlets. Zach lives in Cincinnati suburb of Wyoming, Ohio, with his wife and son. Ambitious vet, it's my honor and privilege to introduce Zachary Green. Zach, are you there?
Hoorah, Chris. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm really excited.
Man, who knows where our two crayon-eating Marines are going to go with this thing, man. But let's hope that we hit the target at some point, huh?
If you put enough rounds down range, at least something's going to hit.
Yeah, let's hope. But just thanks for joining the show, Zach. I mean, you've done a lot of amazing work, and now you're just circling back to, just kind of share some save rounds to us potential military entrepreneurs that are just looking to become more in life every day inside the trenches. So go ahead and fill the gaps inside that background, and we'll kind of go from there. Tell us more about you.
Sure. So, I went to about 6 or 7 schools growing up from kindergarten through high school. I had really bad ADHD. Now, it's funny, it's considered a disability when you're a kid in school, but when you get out, it's called multitasking. And then all of a sudden, it's this great thing. And so I like to think of that disability as an ability, matter of fact, more like a superpower. That allows me to be creative. It allows me to be energetic, how to be able to build up a room and how to do multiple things at one time. And I'll tell you, most of the jarheads that I serve with had a little touch of ADHD also, because you got to keep track of a lot of different things in the dynamics of being in the military. But my story basically, I always wanted to be a Marine ever since I was a young kid. I'd be spreading mud on my face and crawling through the woods while my friends were out riding bikes or kicking soccer balls. And when I finally turned 18 and had to wait till I was 18, because my parents certainly didn't want me to join, I signed right up. And I'll never forget the drill instructor, or not the drill instructor, the recruiter saying, you know what, I don't think you're tough enough to make it through recruit training. I've seen your kind before. You're a big hard talker. And I'm like, I'll show you how tough I am. Give me that damn contract. Signed it right there in front of him. And all of a sudden, here I am getting my ass handed to me on the yellow footprints and getting bit by sand fleas. What I learned was recruit training was incredibly difficult for me. But there were other kids that just sailed through it, and it never seemed to bug them. And the common thread I found is the kids that had a harder life before they went into the Marine Corps had a much easier transition to handle the adversity and the hardship that goes along with not just recruit training, but also, being in the Marine Corps. And I started to learn about this concept of what makes a warrior. And it is this constant drive for growth, not necessarily a willful drive for growth. It's this drive of having adversity, having challenge, and becoming undefeatable no matter what happens, developing that rhino skin. And those kids that grew up in the projects or in the coal mines or out in the middle of the sticks that had a lot of challenge and that maybe didn't get 3 meals a day, they were a lot better prepared than someone like me that was a real mama's boy and had very, well-to-do parents that took care of me, and I struggled. I eventually got out of the Marine Corps pretty early. I was in a funky time from 91 to 99 where there really wasn't any combat deployments. There was a lot of attrition. I went through both Parris Island, but then I also went to Quantico and went through the officer program. And right before I got my commission, I said, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. So I finished up as a corporal. And then 2 years later, September 11th happened. That's a day that affected all of us very deeply. And for me, I had a lot of guilt that I had stopped serving. And I went ahead and re-enlisted, but this time in the fire service as a volunteer firefighter. It's funny, in the Marine Corps, we take stuff that's really really fun and make it as miserable as possible. In the fire service, we take stuff that's really miserable and make it as fun as possible.
Okay.
And I got lost in a fire and wanted to create a product that was going to help other firefighters see each other in the dark, and invented this glow-in-the-dark material, started selling it out of the trunk of my car, and over the next decade grew it into about a $30 million business. But that's the good thing. There was a lot of bumps along the way, and that's that warrior journey that started at Parris Island helped me make it through those difficult times that lied ahead.
Yeah. Thanks for breaking that down and making it precise. It's funny how recruiters, man, they get us in some way, shape, or form. The Marine Corps recruiter, I was talking to the Navy because I wanted to go into Navy SEALs, but I just was not able. I didn't know how to swim as well as the Navy SEALs, point blank. And the Marine Corps recruiter was just like, oh, you want to play college baseball? You'll be able to play for the all Marine team. Signed the dotted line, never picked up a baseball my entire Marine Corps career. So they'll do whatever they can to get you on the dotted line. But you were just saying you had the ADHD, and ambitious vet Zachary here. He's not only built a very successful company, which I'm excited to dive more into that journey of what it took to do that, but also he sits on the Wyoming City Council, also recognized as the Entrepreneur of the Year in the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, and has testified in front of the U.S. House of Representatives Small Business Committee. So when you talk about ADHD, man, your ADHD is a lot of what us vets would like to have, man. You're just falling into a lot of good stuff. But I know that, that's glory days, that's the overnight success type stuff that kind of just like, I can never do that as an aspiring veteran just getting out, right? Tell us about the crucible that you went through leading up to all these now notoriety and building a multi-million dollar enterprise. What was the crucible that you went through?
So, I mean, if you go back to Homer and the Odyssey and the Iliad, if you guys remember reading that in high school, the warrior journey has been the same from that point when Odysseus had to go through the challenges and battle the Cyclops and the Hydra and all those other type of things. And that warrior's journey is having adversity that helps you develop that rhino skin. Iron sharpens iron, getting stronger to get to that point where you become unbeatable. And the first real test of the warrior is the crucible. Now, you and I, or actually you did, I didn't have it at the time, went through the crucible at Paris Island as a way of kind of finishing up and testing everything, pushing you right to your limit. My crucible happened 2 times. Once was at Paris Island when I realized I wasn't as good as I thought I was. And I really just had a bad episode on the parade deck when we were drilling. I messed up. The drill instructor was chewing me out. And I just broke down, started crying, fell down to the prenatal position, dropped my rifle, which as we know is really serious. And he leaned over me and said, I knew you weren't tough enough to make it in the Marine Corps, and your mommy and daddy aren't here to help you. And that cut so deeply. So within that crucible, there's 2 parts to the crucible. The crucible is the crisis in your life that no matter what you've done up to that point, you've never been tested that hard. It's your way of saying, okay, do I have the mettle, MEDDLE? Do I have the mettle to be able to get through this? At the bottom of the crucible is the abyss. And the abyss stands for darkness and failure. It's that dark, deep hole that represents giving up, represents failure, and sometimes even represents death. And the philosopher Nietzsche once said, if you stare long enough into the abyss, eventually the abyss will stare back and ultimately consume you. And what that means is, and we've all seen this, people that have had problems with drug or alcohol or PTSD or problems in relationships or problems in business, the longer you're in that dark place, the harder it is to get out. The longer you put yourself into those toxic relationships or in those environments that are making you continue to perpetuate those bad decisions, the harder it is to get out. To get through your crucible, you have to transform and conquer. Those are 2 very specific words. You have to transform and change, because without that transformation, you're going to get right back to that space you were in before. And you have to conquer. You have to use that warrior ethos to be able to not just survive it, but get through it and crush that. For me, the real big crucible happened about 4 years ago. I was on vacation with my family. I had a discussion with my CFO. I said, look, I'm going to really try to check out on this vacation. No email, no text messages. Unless the place is burning down, don't call me. Well, guess what happens? 3 days into the vacation, he calls me up and he's like, look, we just had a series of bad situations between a lot of expenditures, people not paying us on time, and we're not going to make payroll. And when you don't make payroll, it's over. And so I had what I thought was a heart attack. It turned out to be a panic attack. I had the tightness in my chest. I could feel the shivers running down my arm. And it was my body saying, look, you can't continue on with this. It was a very realistic crucible because my body said, I just can't do this mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. As tough as everything I went through in the Marine Corps, as tough as everything I went through in the fire service, nothing prepared me for what I was encountering as an entrepreneur. So I went ahead and was able to, meditate and pray and just have this discussion with God about it. If this is it, it's it. If not, if you got more for me to do it, let's get this thing going. And the first thing I did was I resigned as CEO from the company that I started. Wow. A lot of people say, why would you do that? Well, I had to make that change. And the reason why is in the Marine Corps, the 2 tenets that we have above everything is mission accomplishment before troop welfare. My ego wanted me to be the CEO. It was my baby. I created it. But the mission now evolved bigger than my skill set. And I couldn't focus on being the visionary and going out there and being creative and motivating people and representing the company if I was still running the day-to-day. And I was doing a really poor job of delegation because I was micromanaging everything. So the way I got through that crucible was, again, the change that I made was bringing on a more professional CEO. I transitioned more into the visionary role. And the way that I conquered that is that I allowed the company to start to grow and mature on its own without me holding it back. And that's when things really started to take off for us.
Wow, that's awesome. An ambitious vet. And it's, as we're going through the military, right? We wear that rank on our collar, right? I got out as a corporal as well, Zach. And we feel so good when we're the frontline enforcer of the United States Marine Corps, right? But it's mission first. It's not title position. And what Zach is illustrating here around how he got out of the missions way is getting a person that had the skill sets around the title that was needed to have the mission be accomplished. And I just want you, ambitious vet, to look at in your everyday life, where are you not putting the mission first? Where do you want to be pursuing positional leadership whenever you may not have the skill sets surrounded around what could be accomplishing the overall mission? Zach, I acknowledge you for doing that, man, because that's intense humility. And I think a lot of veteran entrepreneurs, it's hard to let go of our baby, right? It's any entrepreneur for that matter. It's just hard to give up control around raising our baby because we think that we have all the answers. So I acknowledge you for doing that.
Well, and Chris, if I could just pause you real quick, because I love the analogy you're using with a baby because it's so true.
Yeah.
If you have a newborn and you carry them everywhere on a pillow and you never get them a chance to fall down and to crawl, they'll never learn how to walk because you're doing too much for them. Now you love them. And the reason you're carrying them on that pillow is you love them so much you couldn't even bear to see that baby fall down, but that's how they grow. If that same baby now grows to become age 18, 20, 25, and you're still fixing them breakfast, you're still laying their clothes out for them, you're still doing their laundry, and you won't let them go out of the house because you want to make sure you're over there, you're not helping them. And that's the same thing with your business. At a certain point in your business, you have to let it make some mistakes. You have to let others fix the mistakes to empower them. And more importantly, at sometimes you have to let go, because if it's all about you, you become the bottleneck, and the bigger that basis comes in, the bottleneck is still that small area. You got to be able to open that up through people with not just talent, but also quantity. Nobody probably will ever do a good enough job as you, but they don't need to. If they can do 60% as good as you do, and you hire two of them, that means those two are doing 20% more than you could just by the mere fact of their capacity.
Yeah, very true. Very true. And go ahead and let us know, what was the success metrics of the company after you chose to kind of step down as the quote unquote CEO and step into more of a visionary role? Where did that take the company?
Yeah, so there were two big defining moments that happened. We were averaging about $1 million a year at that point in time. We were making some profit, not a lot. We ended up landing a very substantial $10 million plus project with a major retailer. Nice. It involved 800 stores that we were having to coordinate the replacement of probably 50 to 70 exit signs per store. We had to recycle nuclear material called tritium out of their old exit signs. Typically, I would really be handle on that, but that was so massive. And I had so much work to do at the senior corporate level of that company to convince them and to keep the project going. There weren't enough hours in the day. And the team that we hired, the project managers, were incredible. And the common thread was I'd ask them how things are going. Nobody would even tell me because they knew if I got involved, then I'd want to sit down and start helping them. And they didn't want that to happen. Well, that was really helpful. And then all of a sudden, this thing called COVID comes in, and our exit sign sales went to basically zero overnight because most of our sales is done either selling to big box retailers for them to use it or selling to business, like to a large office building, school system, or hospital. Well, if you take all those things that I just mentioned, those were all the first ones to be shut down, no visitors.
Right.
I thought, how in the world are we going to solve this? And so what I did is, like we do in the military, intel. I went to the 2 shop and I started talking to people. I'm like, what can we do? What do we need to do to get into this new world that we're in? And one of the feedbacks was we need plexiglass barriers. The exit signs that we produce are basically cut out of a sheet of plexiglass about the size of a license plate, but we get them sheets that are the size of almost drywall. And I was able to very early on secure one of the largest shipments of plexiglass that was coming in the United States. I was able to then negotiate a pre-purchase of the next 6 loads that came in because, and it was a gamble. If we had lost, we would have absolutely filed for bankruptcy because there's no way we could have paid that PO. But it was a gamble because I knew if we did get it and the pandemic did stick around, which obviously it is, we'd be in the shape. And we became Home Depot's #1 supplier of pandemic barriers almost overnight. And again, another 8-figure opportunity. But I set up the training. I traveled all over. And the fun thing is I got to travel via virtual Zoom. I didn't have to get on the airplane like I usually do and help negotiate those big deals. But there's no way I could have done that if I was still running the day-to-day.
Wow. I mean, and there's so much to unpackage there. An Ambitious Vet, if you have something to ask from Zachary Green, feel free to do so as you go and you download his book, which we're going to be diving into here in a second, because he's just a wealth of knowledge, as you can tell. But like what I want to ask you, what's right there for me to ask you is, doing what it takes, right? I think I told you when we were offline here, I listened to your episode with America's Entrepreneur, which is the host of that show is a good friend of mine, and Ambitious Vet. Go check that out as he's getting rocking and rolling. It's a great show. And Zachary Green was on that show as well. And you can watch it live on YouTube, not live, but pre-recorded video on YouTube. And Zachary was just on one of his Marine Corps, screaming fest, just like he just did. And he was just like, man, you just got to figure it out. And in the midst of abyss like COVID, and there's a lot of veterans maybe out there that are trying to figure out how to figure it out. Like, what did it take from you emotionally, skill wise, whatever, to go figure it out, to close those deals, to give you enough runway to get more creative and continue to grow the company? Like, what did it take?
I think one of the greatest Marine quotes of all time came from somebody who actually wasn't a Marine, but played one, Clint Eastwood. Heartbreak Ridge, you got to improvise, you got to overcome, you got to adapt. So those are the things, as a Marine, the first thing that happens is we become unbreakable. When we can survive what we go through at Parris Island or Quantico, which was even more, Quantico was a lot more physically difficult. Mentally, it wasn't nearly as difficult as Parris Island, but physically, Quantico was unbelievably difficult physically. But if you can make it through that, you can make it through anything. So then the next question is, well, what skills did you use in the Marine Corps or in the military to help you be successful in the corporate world? Well, I will tell you, most of the skills that I learned in the infantry and the artillery, if I practiced them in the real world, I would be arrested and spent the rest of my life in jail. So no, I'm not talking about blowing people up or killing them with our pinky. What we're talking about are the intangibles: grit, teamwork, courage, integrity, morals. And again, I look at integrity and morals as two very different things. We can talk about that if you want. And I think one of the most important things that we've really screwed up on, and that is serenity. As Marines and as entrepreneurs, we have an obligation to be a strong weapon. And the biggest weapon is that grape upstairs. And if you don't have things right with your family and things right with your God and things right with your emotions and processing some of those horrible things that our brothers and sisters have seen, you're not doing a really good job to the mission, and you're not doing a really good job to the service and to the ultimate overall organization. So all those skills and all those things that we learned about teamwork and being able to have that, those are all those critical skills that I use to get through. But I think at the end of the day, it really came down to one thing, and that was mission accomplishment. Every single problem that an entrepreneur, small business owner encounters is solvable, 100%. The problem is sometimes those solutions are not acceptable to the founder or the entrepreneur, which is why they quit. Because the only way a business can fail is if the founder quits. Now, you may say, well, come on, Zach, there's no bullshit. You can have, if you run out of money, refinance your house. People, well, I would never refinance my house. Great, then quit. And that's okay. But you can solve that problem. If you don't have the right sales, try something else. Find a new way to reposition the product. Outsource it. Maybe go hire sales reps and pay them more money than you're getting paid. So these are all these things that are all solvable, just like in combat. Every single thing that happens in combat is solvable if we work as a team, if we improvise, and sometimes we may have to sacrifice our physical and ultimately our entire life in order to succeed in that mission. And that's part of the job.
Yeah, it really is. It's like how much are you willing to sacrifice for your mission, Ambitious Vet? And are you emotionally connected to your mission? Right. Because Zach, what I'm also hearing is like you are so emotionally connected to your product, saving lives, that, living on credit cards, cashing out your 401k, which I did, I listened to the interview, and you went through all that process with your wife, and that could not have been an easy journey, right? Whenever our world values stability, like walk us through.
Let's talk about my wife for a second, because, my dedication is not just to her, but to all female warriors.
Yeah.
Behind every male warrior is a female warrior, back to the Spartan times. And it's a really bad thing to say behind them, because they're not behind you. They're usually next to you. And a lot of times they're in front of you, carrying you. And if you've ever struggled with PTSD, you've ever had those demons that come out, it almost always is the spouse that bears the real burden of that and has to deal with that. My wife was a very successful OBGYN, making a lot of money. One of the main reasons I decided to go off and do this, because she had that great job. And as the years went by and we realized that my company really had potential to be pretty incredible, she sat down one day and said, guess what? I go, what? She goes, I'm quitting my job. I'm like, whoa, wait a second. You're the backup plan. She's like, no, you're the backup plan. If this thing's going to be successful, you need to devote all your time. I'm quitting the job. I'm going to stay home, take care of your son, take care of everything. You do whatever you have to do to be successful. That was horrifying, because now if I failed, it wasn't like I had something to back up on. Not only have I collateralized the house's mortgage and had literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in business debt that I had personally guaranteed on, but now I don't have that stream. And then she was the one lifting me up. And there were times that I came home and I'm just like, honey, I cannot do this anymore. I can't handle it. It's too much. And she was the one that encouraged me. You can do this. We can do this. This is part of the big plan. We knew it wasn't going to be easy.
Wow.
And now we have the opportunity to enjoy the fruits of a lot of those sacrifices that we made, years ago.
Thank God for Mrs. Green, huh? Thank God for all of that. And for you to staying in the fight and be able to come back and share this testimony to the Ambitious Vet Network to just, inspire us all. Right. So tell us about the Warrior Entrepreneur, lessons from the battlefield to the boardroom. What led you to writing this book, and why is it so important for the times right now?
So, the book was originally supposed to be my autobiography. And as I started working with my editorial team, the editor's like, look, Zach, I don't know how to put this, but you're not that important to have an autobiography. Other than your mom and your dad and your neighbor, nobody's going to want to read your autobiography. Unless your name, of course, is Beyonce or Elton John or George Bush or something like that. Then you can write a biography. They said, why don't you tell your story and what you can learn from it? What's the common thread? And as I look back at all the challenges I had in high school and grade school, getting bounced around, all the difficulty in the Marine Corps, all the challenges in the fire service, I found this warrior's journey start to bubble up. And the book I've divided into 3 categories. So the first category of the book is the science of adversity. I take a deep dive into the fight or flight aspects. It's called parasympathetic or sympathetic systems, about how your body actually releases adrenaline and cortisol and these different types of things that happen to you when you're faced with that emergency. That emergency could be a man-eating shark coming at you, which, by the way, we saw. One of my friends who was actually a Force Recon Marine decide he was going to go swimming at our beach right outside of our house, and he got attacked by a shark. Straight up. He was able to kick it and in typical Marine Corps fashion, fought the shark off. But when he got out of the water, his pupils were like that big. He was white. And those are all reasons, because that blood was flowing to his brain. His pupils got bigger because that was his way of trying to get him ready. If you've ever been involved in a car accident, or you've ever been involved in a very, very traumatic experience, what happens is everything slows down right before that moment of impact. And it's your body releasing these chemicals and doing things to actually give you that superhuman strength and power to be able to observe what you do. And the slowing down is saying, hey, you're going to die probably in the next half second. We're going to slow down to allow you to really absorb everything that's happening, to determine, are we going to brace ourselves by the steering wheel? Are we going to duck to the side? Are we going to do whatever? That same experience can happen in business. You're getting ready to walk into one of the biggest sales meetings of your life and you forget the thumb drive with your lap, you're on it. Or you're getting ready to talk to somebody and you see that as you're walking into the office, your competitors are walking out of the office. Or your boss comes up and just says, hey, Chris, you're fired. Your body's going to go through those exact same things that they went through when that shark was coming at you. And I teach you skills and tools on how to cope with that and how to actually build off of that and get better. The next part of the book is a series of stories where I've divided into chapters. And each one of those chapters are what I consider an important warrior trait. Obviously, I couldn't list all of them. I focus on about 8 to 10 of them. And I interview our warriors. So they could be from Navy SEALs to fellow jarheads to a professor that studies the Spartans. And we go through actual stories of how they were able to overcome those challenges in that framework, be it grit, courage, teamwork, serenity. And then I weave my story in between there also. The book was originally written to be for entrepreneurs. It's not for entrepreneurs. It's not even really for warriors. It's for anybody that has had struggle in their life and they want to use that struggle to get better. It's for anybody that wants to accomplish that mission and get to that unbreakable status by using those warriors pathway. That's who this book's for. Now, it's fantastic if you want to start your own business. It's great if you're a young corporal and you want to rise up the ranks in the military. That's fantastic too. But at the end of the day, it's showing how to use those warrior skills to overcome adversity and to grow and learn from it.
No, that's great. And, I love what I love most about what you said is that this is for anybody. You know what I mean? When you go to the private sector, they're always looking for people that have the entrepreneurial trait as well, which means that you just value autonomy and you're a self-starter, right? But also being a self-starter, ambitious vet, you've got to figure out how to build the attributes to be able to perform and create results without a lot of micromanagement. And what I'm also hearing with Zach is just this book includes all that and then some. For you to build the attributes, add more bullets to your M16 service rifle for you Marines to make sure you can fire more effective rounds down range. So guys, I definitely encourage you to go and pick up your copy of Warrior Entrepreneur: Lessons from the Battlefield to the Boardroom. Obviously, Zach doesn't just talk. He has proof behind the pudding, growing a company to 30 million plus, raising $5 million of venture capital. That's no easy task. I'm just starting that journey and it is extremely competitive. And for you to have a product that raises that kind of money, it has to be doing some kind of revolutionary type impact inside of a market. So that is amazing. So Zach, we have a last segment of the show, which is the last golden grenade of the show, which is a last save round, last wisdom bomb for an ambitious vet that's out in the trenches of life, been out of the military for at least a couple of years, has realized that immediate transitional tools like resume writing, interview prep, and job fairs serves a purpose, but it doesn't get down to them actually finding purpose in their life, right? And they really want to self-actualize post-military. So what would be one last golden grenade that you would provide to that ambitious vet? And then we'll give them a call to action to go and get your book and connect with you.
Yeah, I think the easiest thing is to go onto Google and search Simon Sinek's TED Talk, SINEK, on what, how, and why. A lot of companies focus on the what. The problem is you have a really good what, and nobody knows about that what. You're not going to sell a lot. So let's take a computer, for example, the Apple computer, great computer. But how did people learn about that? So that's the what is the computer. But if nobody knows about the computer, they're not going to buy it. They don't know how to buy it. So then you go to the how. How do you get this computer out to the masses? Do we use something called the internet? Do we do Facebook marketing? Do we do whatever else? But the most important thing, and for us as veterans, which is I think the number one reason why we fall into this depression, into homelessness, and all these challenges that happen when you get out, is the why. We lose our why. We lose our sense of purpose. And what's interesting, the most revolutionary commercial of all time was in the Super Bowl back in the 80s, 1984, actually. And it was the famous Apple thing where they had IBM was up on stage. They were parlaying it over George Orwell. And this woman comes running through with a sledgehammer, and she breaks the screen, and this big explosion happens, and out comes the introduction of the Macintosh. Never talked about what it is, never talked about the feature functionalities. The only thing that they focus on, the why, the only part of that was, we're going to have you think different. And even to this day, Apple never really talks about the size of their computers and stuff. It's always about think different, do something more. When you go into an Apple store, there's a feeling. So I would encourage you, as our fellow veterans, what is your why? How are you going to get that why out there? And what is it that you're going to put together? But it all comes down to that purpose and that why. Now, money could be purpose, that's important, but it's got to be more than just money. I look at money as the scorecard that tells you how well you're doing, not that I'm just chasing money. I'm chasing money because that tells me if I'm doing a good job or not. If I'm making a lot of money, it tells me that something's right. If I'm not making money, I got to, recalibrate and adjust and fire the next mission from there. So why and purpose, big important stuff.
I love the money is a scorecard thing. Oh, that's great. I needed to hear that. Ambitious Vet, make sure you go and check out warriorontrepreneurbook.com. I'm actually going to be, I just thought about this right before we hit record on this show, but the first 5 ambitious vets that you either email me or Zachary Green, I want to pay for your signed copy of his book. First 5 people that either email me or email Zachary Green, I want to purchase a signed copy for you, Ambitious Vet. So make sure you be the first one to do that, because I am so passionate about you just being able to build the grit, build the emotional resilience, the mental toughness to succeed in 2022 and beyond. Zach, is there anything that, any last parting words for the Ambitious Vet Network before we say goodbye?
Well, first one is keep in touch. I really do reach out and respond to every email, every person that talks to me. I love that. That's my purpose. That's my why now, is helping our fellow veterans achieve success and not have to go through all the same mistakes that I went through. ZacharyLGreen@gmail.com is my direct email. And then, as you had mentioned, warriorontrepreneurbook.com is the website. If you use the coupon code podcast2021, we'll get you a 50% off on the book that's sold there. But more importantly, I'm really excited to announce this. I'm just launching it just in the last couple of days. I'm going to start a Warrior Framework training program. What we're going to do with that is I'm going to take a very select group of people. We're going to have an assessment you're going to have to take ahead of time. And we're going to take you through about a 90-day program that's going to include one-on-ones with me. There'll be a workbook assigned that's going to have tasks. And at the end of that program, you will have all the basis that you need to start and build your own company, from a business plan to a pitch deck to be able to talk to investors, pitch deck practice, and really helping to build out your what, how, and why. And that'll be launching very soon. The best way to get information on that is if you're on that warriorontrepreneurbook.com website, just simply fill out the contact us information there, and I'll be sure to get information once the assessment comes out. And we're hoping to have the course live probably in the next month or 2 here.
Come on. I love it. I love it. Just not slowing down like a real Marine. I love it. I'll
slow down when I die.
Yeah, that's it, man. Hoorah. I love it. So Zach, just thanks for joining the Ambitious Vet Show. Thanks for just laying out breadcrumbs for us young guns that are following in your footsteps. We really appreciate it. And just really thanks for joining the Ambitious Vet Show today.
Well, thank you, brother. And you are the epitome of Semper Fidelis. You're always faithful, not just to your country and your core, but now also to this next generation of your life, which is trying to make that transition a little smoother and easier for our brothers and sisters. So God bless you.
The Ambitious Vet is available on all popular podcast platforms. Go to vettrainingcoaching.com to subscribe, rate, and share with fellow vets.
No matter where you are in life, the mission isn't over. There's an enemy that can stop your efforts dead in their tracks. And that enemy is you. Ambitious Vet, if you're ready to get out of your own way and create the clarity to create the results that you want to create, over and over again, I encourage you to go check out www.10stepstosuccessbook.com, where I dissect and unpackage my own personal story of getting out of my own way, and even provide the tools that I practice still daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly to stay out of my own way, because it never stops, right? So we all know that. But my job here is to make sure that you are equipped to conquer 2022 and make a real economical impact in whatever you're passionate about. Hopefully these tools help provide you the clarity to do so. Again, it's www.10stepstosuccessbook.com.